And this coach said that he thought McCaffrey was still a great player and the player you had to deal with when you play the Niners, but he thought he just was half a step slower. You could certainly look at the fact that he didn't have many long runs this year, which he's had in the past. I mean, he certainly has a lot of touches. Because, look, what did he have this year in terms of touches? Did he have over 400?
Oh, yeah.
That's an exorbitant number of touches for a back.
This is quite a moment.
It's a pinnacle.
This is quite a moment. I mean, like the backdrop of Greg Cosell, who joins us on the River Islands guest line, we're sitting here live at Radio Row, is no longer that little punch board, and you look at like you're actually here.
I'm here.
You're a real person.
Yeah,
I had no idea. I thought you were AI.
Yeah, well, I will be soon.
That's right.
Well, his information is so spot on, you figured it would be AI, right?
No question, or just not even without the A, just the intelligence of the great Greg Cosell, NFL Films. It's wonderful to have you here.
It's so great to meet you guys, to be sitting with you guys. You know, this is awesome.
We were joking with you earlier when we were talking that, at least from the Bay Area's perspective, the biggest game in the world is here. All the people are here. It's all about the NFL. And we're spending most of the week talking about the NBA. So please break down Draymond Green. Your thoughts?
Has Giannis been traded yet?
No, he's not.
You know, the thing about the NBA is it's all these three-team trades. You can't keep up with who goes where.
It's a lot of names.
It's a lot of names.
When a trade comes down, it's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of names.
Yeah, but the Warriors and Bucks might be able to just do something one-to-one.
Maybe.
Well,
you mean Giannis for Draymond?
No. Meaning like not a third team.
Oh, okay.
They could just Warriors and Bucks.
Right.
Yeah. So there you have it.
We'll see. I mean, Draymond's been here since when?
13 and a half years ago.
Wow, it's a long time.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
And you think about, like, even in the NFL, it's hard to find a player who's with a single team for that long in their career. Even Tom Brady shuffled on to Tampa Bay, and it's very rare in any sport, but it seems to me like in the NFL it's even more rare. I'm thinking about, Marino, obviously, and John Elway.
Sure.
Were one-team guys who were legendary. So
I mean, the quarterbacks are usually the ones that I mean, you mentioned Brady, obviously, but usually it's the quarterbacks, but very often because of salary cap implications, it's just tough to keep guys just because, hey, look, you probably saw that the salary cap's going up by a significant amount.
Yes.
I think that was announced about a week or so ago.
Correct.
And, so it gets hard to pay. You have to put a team together. You can't just pay one or two guys, although it kind of plays out like that sometimes, but it's a tough deal.
I just went to the restroom and I walked by a guy who's been on two teams in the NFL. His name is Christian McCaffrey. What'd you think of his year and what that amount of touches means for him going forward?
That's an impossible question to answer.
That's why I asked it, Greg. Yeah.
McCaffrey's a really interesting guy because I spoke to a coach that played against the 49ers. And I always, when I speak to coaches, I go in with the premise that they know more than I do. That's the way I deal with things.
That's very humble of you.
I'm not one of those guys that thinks, hey, I know everything. I work my tail off. I probably know a good amount, but, when I'm talking to a coach, I always feel like, hey, he's going to tell me things that I don't see quite the same way, and it always resonates. And this coach said that he thought McCaffrey was still a great player and the player you had to deal with when you play the Niners, but he thought he just was half a step slower. And, again, for someone like myself, did I see that exactly? I would have to answer that no. Now, you could certainly look at the fact that he didn't have many long runs this year, not many 20-plus yard runs, which he's had in the past. I would also argue, based on tape studies solely, that there were too many times where he couldn't get past the first level of the defense, which is not necessarily on him. But to know what the future holds, boy, that's hard to know. I mean, he certainly has a lot of touches. He's supposed to be a workout fiend in the offseason. He's obviously not going anywhere. He'll be back this year as the back. Maybe it is time, just as a general principle, for him not to have that many touches and to get someone who you can line up and who's maybe not McCaffrey, but at least you feel good enough about putting him out there for 2 or 3 possessions every week, so that McCaffrey doesn't. Because look, what did he have this year in terms of touches? Did he have over 400?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If you count the playoffs, it was right around there. Especially when you count
the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean that's an exorbitant number of touches for a back.
Yeah, 4-13 in the regular season, second in carries to Jonathan Taylor. But
right.
You talked about not getting to the second level. When you look at the Niners' run game in particular on tape, where are the real weaknesses that didn't allow him to get to that second level?
You know, to me, and again, I'm always, and we've talked about this during the season, you know, I'm not charting every offensive lineman on every play. Obviously, I can't do that because I've got to get through as many games as I can, and each side of a ball takes me a good 2.5, 3 hours just to get through one side of a ball. 65 plays, let's say 70 plays, depending on the week. You know, to me, they struggled inside. You know, I kind of felt like the interior three of their O-line, you know, wasn't as good as you would want it to be. You know, that's the way I saw the film. Again, I'm not charting, you know, I wasn't charting the left guard. I wasn't charting Brendel. I wasn't charting Pooney every snap. But I just felt like that it wasn't as good as you wanted it to be on a consistent basis.
Greg Cosell, NFL Films, joins us live in the Odyssey Sports Zone at Radio Row, presented by Tide. If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide. We were talking earlier about how all teams, when they want to improve in the offseason, they've got a list, right?
Yeah.
They've got a lot of spots. And in one offseason, you can't necessarily go after all of them. How would you prioritize what you saw with the Niners as far as maybe their top thing or two, spot or two they really need to address?
I would say that you've got to be able to rush the quarterback. I don't know if they think that Nick Bosa changes all that just as one individual. Maybe they think that's fine. I think you definitely need receivers. You know, I don't know. Look, you know how I feel about Pearsall, and when he played, he was good. But, you know, availability is a key factor in this league, as we know, and he's now played 2 years and has not been able to play as many games as you need him to play, you know. So I think they need a vertical dimension, which I think Pearsall can do, but is not purely a vertical dimension. You know, the concern for them, too, is some of their really good players are just getting up there in years. I mean, Trent Williams, at some point, Mother Nature's taken over here. Right. It's just, you know, I mean, the guy's, what, 37? Mm-hmm. I mean, and who knows about Kittle now, coming off an Achilles at age 32, I believe.
32, yep.
So, I mean, you know, I think they have a number of positions. I'll be fascinated, and we don't know the answer to this because of his background, but with Raheem Morris, because he's done so many different things defensively, it's hard to say exactly what his foundation will be, because he'll have to look at the talent and certainly see what they do in terms of free agency and the draft to see how what his foundational philosophy will be in terms of defensive structure, because there's been so many things he's done over the last number of years. But you got... Look, the reality is you got to be able to rush the quarterback in this league. If you can't rush the quarterback in the NFL, it's going to be hard. I mean, look, I don't know how the faithful feel. I don't know how you guys feel. But their record this year and the fact that they were able to go to Philadelphia in January and win a playoff game with all the injuries they had and the people they were putting out there, I think really says a lot about their season. I mean, I know fans want more. They always want more unless you win the Super Bowl, obviously. Yep. But I thought it was a pretty remarkable job by the coaching staff, given all the injuries and what they were putting out there over the last part of the season.
Remarkable is a great word, because you started half the season with a backup quarterback who was a cast-off. You didn't rush the quarterback.
No.
You didn't intercept the ball.
No.
Yet your defense was kind of mid-pack despite that, and offensively you were able to make do without Kittle for a handful of games, without your quarterback. So remarkable is a good word for it.
No, that's the reality of it. I mean, look, we know how fans are, and they should be like that. I mean, fans want a team to get to the Super Bowl and win. And it would have been wonderful this year being here in their home area. But, you know, they just had so many injuries. And, you know, look, the receiver position is interesting to me because, you know, I like Juan Jennings, but, and I'm just being realistic based on tape, and I remember watching him coming out of Tennessee, and I thought he was super physical, competitive. I thought he'd play in the league, but he's not a number one receiver. Right. And, you know, you're not saying anything out of school by saying that. You know, he's not a number one. He's a really solid, probably a 2-2-way kind of guy. You know, and he's very good on third down because he's physical and he catches the ball. But, you know, he's not really a guy that's going to stretch a defense. He's not that guy. So, I think it'll be interesting to see how they evaluate the receiver position.
Let me ask you this. The Raheem Morris hire by Kyle Shanahan. Everyone I talk to, including you, seems to be very high on the idea. However, you also mentioned he could probably take this defense in a lot of different directions. So without that definition of what he's going to do, why do you think everybody loves the hire so much?
Well, I think because he's done a lot of things and he's done them well. I mean, the defense that, and again, we weren't in the rooms in the game plan, so we don't know what the division of labor was between Raheem Morris and Jeff Ulbrich in Atlanta.
Yep.
But in that defense, they were man-to-man heavy and blitz heavy. We know when he was with the Rams, he was not man-to-man and blitz heavy. So he's done a lot of things, and I think that's a positive, because what that says is that he's willing to play to the personnel. Now, every coach has a general philosophy that they'd like to, I think, put in. My guess is deep down he's not necessarily a man-to-man blitz guy at his core, but he's obviously willing to do that if he feels that he has the personnel. You could argue, people have asked me this year about, who's more important, Fred Warner or Nick Bosa? That's a question you get a lot. And the way that Robert Salah plays defense, they're almost of equal importance, because the way, as a zone-based guy, there's a lot of static to the defense, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But so what becomes critical is the drops of the linebackers. And there may not be a better dropping linebacker, understanding route concepts, understanding landmarks, understanding how to play zone coverage and matching up when you had to, than Fred Warner. I think he's the best in the league at that. I think he's the best in the league overall, but at that he's phenomenal. And then you have Nick Bosa, and we know that Robert Salah is not a guy that really wanted to blitz heavy. He had to do it at times during the season, because at some point you got to rush the quarterback.
Right.
If you can't get there with 4, you got to add, because otherwise the quarterback's back there having a party. You got to rush the quarterback.